In today's video, we will be taking a look at a full 2024 election prediction. This will include the presidential election, the Senate elections, and the governor elections, as well as the House elections. So we will get right into today's video because this video is going to take quite a long time. Starting with the presidential election race. I do believe that Trump and Biden will be their respective nominees, and this will be a rematch of 2020. Trump's indictment has certainly helped him boost up some of his poll numbers in the Republican primary, and Joe Biden, because he is running for re-election, he is most certainly going to win the Democratic nominee. So I'm going to get right into today's video. Now first off, let's start with Trump's likely states because he is currently down in the electoral votes, at least from the safe states. He has quite a few of safe states as well. So Alaska, South Carolina, these are states Donald Trump is going to win by around 12 points, not necessarily a safe margin, but pretty close to that. Now, Iowa and Ohio as well, these are states that both voted for Trump by about 8 points in both 2016 and 2020. These two states are too far gone for Democrats for them to have a realistic shot of winning these two states. While the Republicans are also going to win the state of Texas, because if 2020 has shown anything, it's that Democrats have been trying to win the state, but at least in the nearby future, Republicans are definitely still going to have the upper edge, because of the fact that there's still more Republicans in general in the state like Texas. Florida is now too far gone for Democrats. If 2020 has shown anything, it's that Democrats are probably not going to win Florida. In fact, in 2022, Ron DeSantis won his governor's race by 17 points, and Republicans on the Senate level also matched a similar performance. Now for Joe Biden's likely states. First off, Virginia, Colorado, and New Mexico. These were all likely states for Biden in 2020, and they're most certainly going to be likely states for him in 2024 as well, because not much is going to change in these 4 years. I also think that as well as that, the state of Maine, its at-large vote, will be a likely state for Joe Biden. Again, he did win this overall at-large vote by about 8 points, and I think he'll win it by around 8 points again. And now these are the final competitive states. This 109 electoral votes will determine the presidency. Let's start with Nevada here. I do believe Joe Biden has a narrow edge here. The reason being that although Democrats are doing worse in Clark County than they are doing previously, there is some Republican trends. At the end of the day, I think Joe Biden's still favored in Nevada because at the end of the day, most of the voters are in Clark County, and this county still votes for Democrats by around 10 points, and Republican turnout in rural areas are pretty substantial, but Democrats in urban areas are also turning out at record rates. I also think the state of Arizona will go for Joe Biden. The reason is because Trump is just not popular in a state like Arizona. He is just too far gone to win the state of Arizona or any of these Sunbelt states that he turned down in 2020. I think Georgia as well, this is going to be a tilt state for Joe Biden. The reason because, again, Trump is not going to do that well in the suburban areas. Although Republicans are most certainly going to nominate Donald Trump, at the end of the day, he is just not the most electable candidate. In 2022, he dragged Republicans down, and I think he'll do that again in 2024. I think Trump won't lose any of the states he actually won in 2020, which includes the state of North Carolina. I think North Carolina will go to Trump by about 3%. Again, Joe Biden is going to be in the center of attention, and that would not be good for him because he also has a fair amount of blunders in his presidential election campaign between 2020 and 2024. I think for the state of Minnesota, this will be a lean state. I think the fact that Joe Biden won the state by 7 points ensures that he is most certainly not going to actually lose the state. I think the margin will be closer, but I don't think he's going to lose the state. Now, Joe Biden really just needs one of the states of Michigan or Pennsylvania, while Trump needs to win both of these states in order to win the presidential election. Wisconsin, New Hampshire, and the 2 districts don't really matter in this scenario. Now, I do think Trump is going to win the state of Wisconsin. This is the most conservative out of the 3 Rust Belt states that are also called the Blue Wall. And really, a lot of the areas in the Waukesha suburbs and areas like that, and as well as some of the rural areas, are going to vote for Trump, and that will help him win the state. Now, for the state of New Hampshire here, Joe Biden did win the state by 7. I don't think he's going to win the state by 7. I think Trump will win more than 2 counties like he did in 2020, but I think it's not going to be enough for him to win the state. I think Maine's 2nd district will go to Donald Trump because he did make this district very, very Republican. As previously, Republicans keep losing the district by around 10 points, now Republicans are winning the district by 10 points. As well as that, I think Joe Biden will win Nebraska's 2nd district. He did win the district by 7, and really, if any candidate wins its state or district by more than 5 points, it's very unlikely they end up losing that same race. So Democrats need just one of the 2 states, and Republicans need 2. I'm going to start off with the state of Michigan, and this will be the tipping point state. Joe Biden does win the state of Michigan. The reason because Biden did win the state by 3 points, and really I don't see a way for Trump to end up winning. Even more conservative YouTubers like Red Eagle Politics do acknowledge that Democrats are probably favored if Trump is a nominee in a state like Michigan. Because again, some of the suburban areas are going to be too far gone for the GOP, and Pennsylvania as well. This will be a tilt state for Joe Biden. The reason because, again, Trump can't do well in the suburban areas. He is just too unpopular to do that. Now, is Biden popular? Not at all. But I think at the end of the day, Joe Biden will win the presidential election. Now let's go to the Senate level, where things look a lot better for the GOP. For one thing, Republicans have far less seats to defend. If we characterize in the safe states for both parties, Republicans have 47, Democrats only have 37, but they have 2 independents that caucus with them in Maine and Vermont. But that still only brings Democrats to 39. Republicans are up 8 seats in the safe seats. So because Democrats are down by this much, I'm going to give Democrats their likely states. Virginia with Tim Kaine, going to be a likely state. New Jersey, Bob Menendez is not the most popular Democrat, but at the end of the day, I think he will be able to win the state. New Mexico as well, last time, Democrats won by 25 points because the Libertarian candidate and 2016 presidential election second runner-up did end up carrying around 13% of the vote for the Libertarian Party and really taking away most of those votes from the GOP. And those are the 3 likely states, most significant likely states for Democrats. I would also like to say Minnesota with Amy Klobuchar. Klobuchar is a very popular Democrat, going to win by around 13 points in the state of Minnesota, which is quite impressive for a swing state, but she was able to win by 20 points back in 2018. So, for the likely Republican states, I think Texas is a pretty obvious one. Ted Cruz only won by 2 points against Beto O'Rourke, but now O'Rourke has taken a much more unfavorable standpoint to most Texans, such as the more pushing for gun control. Those are not things that are popular, and it was reflected in his 2022 election bid, where he did end up losing to Greg Abbott by around 10 points for the governor's race. I think Florida as well going to be a likely state for the GOP, largely because, again, Florida Senate, we don't expect. I don't think we expect much from the Democrats here because of the fact that Democrats have no shot in the state of Florida from pretty much this point onwards for the nearby future and probably for the next 30 to 50 years. And I think as well as that, West Virginia, this will be a likely state for Joe Manchin's challenger. The reason being, this is a state that Trump won by 40, and realistically, Joe Manchin needs around 25 to 35% of Republicans to end up voting for him to win the state, and pretty much all independents. He will not be able to get those margins in such a divided environment. In fact, Joe Biden did not even crack 30% in the state of West Virginia. So relying heavily on Democrats is not going to help you in the state. So that will be it for the likely states. Lean states for the Democrats because they're already down by 7 seats. So they need all 7 seats in order to get a draw with the GOP, which means whoever wins the presidential election, in this case, Joe Biden's VP Kamala Harris, will be the tie-breaking vote. But I don't think Democrats are going to win 50 seats. For South Michigan, I think this will be a seat that goes to Democrats by a lean margin. I don't think that's very surprising, though the Democratic incumbent Debbie Stabenow is retiring. Thank you to the viewer that ended up pointing that out to me. At the end of the day, I think that in the state of Michigan, this again, because this is a presidential election year and Democrats are expected to win the presidential election in Michigan, that gives Democrats a boost, and will also gives Democrats a boost so that they do have the incumbency advantage, though the incumbent is not going to be running again. But guess which state has an incumbent Democrat who will be running again in the Rust Belt? The state of Pennsylvania. Democrats do have a pretty good shot at winning the state of Pennsylvania because they won the state last time by more than 10 points. Bob Casey is a very popular Democrat, and he should be able to win the state of Pennsylvania, even though the presidential election could hurt him because he definitely will be closer to the presidential election results we see than his last election bid in 2018, which ended in around a 15-point victory for him in the state of Pennsylvania. Now for the final states here. So the first lean Republican state will be the state of Ohio. Sherrod Brown is in an R+8 seat in the presidential election race, and this will be very hard for him to hold on. Jim Renacci, his Republican challenger last time, pretty much gave up mid-campaign because polls were showing him Jim Renacci, that is, down 15 points. And he only ended up winning by 8. Now, 8 is still a pretty impressive margin for a swing state, but Republicans are going to fund more money into this race, and at the end of the day, I don't see Democrats end up winning the state. I also don't see Democrats winning the state of Montana. This, if elected, Jon Tester, this will be his 4th term, but in every single race that he has been able to win, it wasn't by a large margin. When he was first elected, it was about 3 to 4 points. His second election, he won by 3 to 4 points. His third election, he won by 3 to 4 points as well, and that was 2018, a non-presidential election year in the Democratic wave. This time it will be a presidential year, which means there will be more Republican turnout, and also this is not going to be a wave election for the Democratic Party. And at the end of the day, I don't think Jon Tester could possibly hold on, because Ohio and West Virginia have Democratic incumbents, though in conservative states, they have at least priorly speaking won by huge margins. We have Joe Manchin winning by a huge margin in his first term, and Sherrod Brown as well winning by a huge margin in his first election, but that is not the same case with Jon Tester. Tester was fighting for his life the first day he was elected. Now, tilt state for Democrats will be the state of will be the state of Wisconsin. I don't think that's too surprising. Democrats did win the state by 10 points last election, so I think Democrats will ultimately still hold on to their blue wall. However, that will not be enough for the Democratic Party, as they are only at 46 seats, and Republicans are at 52. Now, I think Nevada will still go for the Democrats by a tilt margin. The reason being, I think Democrats are still going to win the state of Nevada because they will win it in the presidential election level. Plus, they do have an incumbency advantage, which is very important in Senate races. Arizona as well, I think, though this time because Kyrsten Sinema is an independent now, she is definitely not going to win re-election because in polls, she consistently polls in 3rd place. I think Arizona, though, will go to GOP because Kyrsten Sinema, as previously a Democrat, will split more of the Democratic votes than the Republican votes. So that will be it for the Senate, 53 to 47 for the GOP. And this will be the governor's level. Now, the governor is more interesting because we have Democratic governors in safe red states and vice versa. And we're going to start off with Vermont and New Hampshire. Two very, very popular Republican governors. New Hampshire notably being Chris Sununu. These two governors are very, very popular, and really there's no chance Democrats get rid of them, though they are Republicans. Delaware has a Democratic governor, and they should be able to win. North Carolina with Roy Cooper. Cooper should be able to win, though this is a presidential election year, and Republicans are expected to win the presidential election. I think Roy Cooper, being relatively popular, will win him the seat again. West Virginia, the GOP hold. Indiana, Montana, not really much there, a GOP hold. The state of Utah, a GOP hold. North Dakota, a GOP hold. The state of Washington, a Democratic hold. and Montana a Republican hold. Wow, very surprising. Now, if you're first time looking at these type of maps, you might be asking why Vermont and New Hampshire is red. I have explained it. It's because politics really in the governor's level is far different from the Senate and presidential races. Finally, the 2024 House election model, I have Democrats at 213, Republicans at 222. Now, interestingly, just 4 years ago, when Democrats held their majority, Democrats had 222 votes. Between 2021 and 2023, Democrats had 222 votes, while Republicans had 213 representatives. Now it's going to be flipped according to my projections. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.